She had endured 10 long years in that chair, and if you asked her about it, she'd tell you the worst part wasn't the pain. It wasn't the loss of independence, or the way the council members looked at her like she was a relic collecting dust in the corner. No, the worst part was how utterly boring it was. A decade of sitting through speeches while sitting on my own ass, she would mutter, her sharp alien accent carrying enough venom to curdle wine. If patience was power, I'd be Empress of the Galaxy by now. The alien diplomat was regal, feared, and notoriously sharp-tongued. Even disabled, she could reduce rivals to stammering fools with nothing more than a smirk and a cruelly timed comment. But privately, she burned with bitterness. 10 years without walking, without standing tall, without feeling the rhythm of her own people's war dances. 10 years of being dismissed as half a person. Enter the human. Not a politician, not a warrior, not even particularly clean. A mechanic, sent as part of the diplomatic exchange. His clothes perpetually smelled of solder and burnt plastic, and his hair looked like it had fought a losing battle with gravity. But his hands were clever, and his mouth even cleverer, though not always in the way he intended. Their first meeting was supposed to be formal. She rolled into the council chamber, cloaked in silks, glaring daggers at everyone in the room. He was waiting near the corner, fidgeting with some metallic scraps, not even pretending to be dignified. When she saw him slouching there, she snapped, "Another human. Do they think you can fix broken treaties the way you fix broken plumbing?" Without looking up, he muttered, "Depends. Are the treaties clogged with crap too?" The room went silent. A diplomat from the neighboring faction choked on his drink. She blinked, then, unexpectedly, laughed. A sharp, mocking laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. "You're bold for someone so unimpressive." "Hey," he said, finally glancing at her, "I do leg work. That's more than most politicians." The joke hit harder than he realized. Her jaw tightened, her eyes flicking down to her chair. She raised one brow and murmured, "Leg work. Cute." The way she said it made it sound less like a phrase and more like a proposition. From then on, their conversations became a minefield of double meanings. He'd say something ordinary, and she'd twist it into something filthy with regal precision. He once commented on tight screws in his machinery, and she purred, "I imagine you're experienced with that." He nearly swallowed his own tongue. Despite the banter, or maybe because of it, she grew oddly fond of him. He wasn't intimidated by her, and he didn't pity her either. He didn't look at her chair and see weakness, he looked at her face and spoke to her like an equal. That was rare, rarer than gold in her world. One evening, after another tedious council session, she found him in the mechanics bay tinkering with something that sparked ominously. She approached, rolling up behind him silently. "You work late," she said. He jumped, smacking his head on a pipe. "Oh, damn it. You can't just sneak up on people in a chair." "Why not?" she asked sweetly. "It's the only advantage of being down here. No one hears the wheels until it's too late." He rubbed his scalp, glaring half-heartedly. "You're impossible. And yet you keep talking to me." Maybe it was the way her voice softened that night, or maybe it was the look in her eyes, a glimmer of vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see, but he set down his tools and faced her properly. "You know," he said, carefully, "I could, maybe help you." She arched her brow. "Help me what? Bore me with another metaphor about humans standing tall? Don't tell me you're going to sweep me off my feet." "Actually, yeah," he said. "Kind of literally." That earned him a long, skeptical stare. "You think you can fix what 10 years of my people's healers could not?" "I think your people gave up too quickly," he said simply. "I think they saw a problem they couldn't solve neatly, so they stopped trying. Humans don't do that. We're stubborn. Stupidly stubborn. If it breaks, we fix it. If we can't fix it, we duct tape it. If duct tape doesn't work, we invent something new. And I'm telling you, I can get you back on your feet." She chuckled, low and dangerous. "Your phrasing leaves much to be desired. Still, I admit, I want to see how you attempt this miracle. But understand me, human, if you fail, I will not forgive you. I have endured 10 years of humiliation already. I will not endure false hope. Fair enough, he said. But hope's not false if it's handmade. And trust me, I've got good hands. Her lips twitched upward. You really should learn to choose your words more carefully. In my culture, that could be taken as an indecent proposal. He flushed, but refused to back down. Then maybe indecent proposals are what you need. For the first time in years, she felt heat rush to her cheeks. She covered it with a scoff and wheeled away, but her heart was pounding. Maybe it was arrogance. Maybe it was madness. Or maybe, just maybe, this ridiculous human actually could change everything. And so the challenge was set. A decade of waiting might finally end, not because of politics or science, but because one clumsy, sharp-tongued human refused to accept that she'd never walk again. He didn't see a crippled diplomat. He saw someone worth building legs for. And in the silence of her chambers that night, she whispered to herself, "What a dangerous fool." She didn't realize yet that dangerous fools were the only ones capable of rewriting her future. The human didn't waste time once she gave the faintest nod of approval. From the moment he promised her legs, his workshop became a den of chaos, sparks, and profanity. The alien council thought he was mad. They whispered about failure, scandal, and improper mechanical courtship rituals. She didn't stop them. In fact, she enjoyed watching the dignified counselors squirm every time he mentioned fitting her with the perfect pair. The way their faces twisted at his double meanings almost made the waiting worth it. He was tireless, always covered in oil, metal dust clinging to his hair, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong, calloused arms. She noticed those arms more than once, though she'd never admit it aloud. When she teased him about always working with his hands, he gave her a look that made her heart skip for reasons she preferred to dismiss as irritation. The designs themselves were a blend of human stubbornness and alien elegance. He didn't just build functional prosthetics, he sculpted them with curves, polished alloys, and intricate detailing, as though every bolt deserved a crown. "If you're going to stand again," he said, wiping sweat from his brow, "you're going to stand in style. No clunky nonsense. These legs are going to turn heads." She tilted her chin, unimpressed. "I should hope so. I refuse to look like a malfunctioning scarecrow. Besides, if I am to walk again, I'd rather not wobble like a hatchling learning balance." "Relax," he said. "They'll be sturdy. Stronger than your old ones, actually. You'll be able to run, dance, probably even kick down doors if you want." Her smile was sharp, predatory. "You promise me I'll be able to kick down doors? That alone may justify enduring your chatter." When the first fitting day arrived, the room felt charged. The alien soldiers stationed nearby shifted uneasily, as though expecting catastrophe. The human knelt before her chair, tools at the ready, and muttered, "All right, let's get these beauties attached." "Beauties," she repeated with a sly tone. "You speak as if you're courting my legs." "I mean, I've spent more time on them than I've ever spent on a date," he replied before realizing what he'd said. His face turned crimson, but she threw her head back and laughed, a sound that startled even the gods. "Oh, human, you have no idea how easily your words can be twisted." The process wasn't graceful. Bolts jammed, circuits hissed, and once or twice the prosthetics jerked violently, nearly kicking him across the room. She pretended not to notice the panic in his eyes. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" she asked sweetly as one leg spasmed. "Of course," he lied, tightening a wrench. "This is just foreplay. Sometimes the machinery needs a little coaxing before it behaves." She stared at him, stunned for only a moment, before smirking. "Foreplay, hem? Do continue. I'm curious to see how this coaxing works in practice." He nearly dropped the tool. "That's not, I mean, it's just an expression." "Is it? Then perhaps I should start writing down these expressions. They may be useful in negotiations." When he finally locked the prosthetics into place, something shifted in the air. She could feel them, metal, foreign, yet alive with energy. Her breath hitched, her fingers gripping the armrests. For the first time in 10 years, she felt the phantom pulse of standing. "All right," he said softly. "Try moving." It was clumsy at first. Her steps were jerky, stiff, unrefined. She wobbled like a child taking their first tottering walk. But then, slowly, strength flooded back. The hum of machinery synced with her will, and she rose higher, taller, until she looked down at him, not as a crippled diplomat, but as something reborn. The council chamber echoed with shocked gasps. She ignored them. Her gaze locked on him, and she whispered, "I'm standing." He grinned, eyes shining with pride. "Told you I'd get you back on your feet." Her lips curved into a wicked smile. "Careful, human. In my culture, when one restores another's legs, it's considered a binding ritual. You may have just proposed without realizing it." The blood drained from his face. "Wait, you're saying this is marriage?" "Not marriage," she said with mock innocence, stepping closer until he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. "Something more serious. A vow of service. A lifetime bond. The kind that usually ends with shared chambers and shared beds." The soldier's jaws dropped. The counselors sputtered. He looked as though he might faint. But she reveled in it. After a decade of weakness, she wasn't just standing, she was towering. She walked across the floor, testing her new strength, letting the metallic hum echo with each step. Every wobble grew steadier, every falter corrected with determination. She stopped in front of him and declared, "You've done what no one else could. You've given me back not just my legs, but my dignity. And now, human, you must face the consequences of your own handiwork." He opened his mouth to protest, but she silenced him with a raised hand. "Do not worry. I'm not unreasonable. But if our bond is to mean anything, you will have to keep up with me. Think you can handle that?" There was a gleam in her eyes, playful yet dangerous. The words dripped with double meaning, daring him to rise to the challenge. He swallowed hard, nodded once, and muttered, "Guess I'll just have to put in the legwork." Her laugh filled the chamber again, but this time it wasn't sharp, it was triumphant. For the first time in 10 years, she wasn't sitting on the sidelines. She was standing, walking, even towering above her peers. And the man responsible, the ridiculous, stubborn human, had no idea what chaos he'd unleashed. The rumors spread faster than wildfire, carried by gossiping aides and scandalized guards. By the time she had taken her first full walk through the council halls, half the planet seemed to believe the human had claimed her as his mate in some bizarre ritual of bolts and circuits. Everywhere they went, whispers followed, "Look at the bond, they say he fitted her personally, do you think he tested them himself?" Each phrase was laced with suggestive undertones, which only made the human flush redder with every step. She, on the other hand, basked in it. After a decade of pity, she finally commanded attention again, and she wasn't about to waste the opportunity. At dinner, she sat taller than she ever had, legs crossed in deliberate display. She caught him glancing once, then twice, before stammering an excuse about checking the alignment of the joints. She leaned in and purred, "If you're that curious about my joints, human, I can assure you they are very flexible." The diplomat across the table nearly choked on his drink. The human nearly slid under the table. She smirked, victorious. But the problem with alien traditions was that they had consequences. Her people, steeped in symbolism, began sending gifts, silks, rare wines, ceremonial oils, tokens for a bond that, by their standards, was unbreakable. The human found himself in her chambers one evening surrounded by exotic offerings, muttering, "This looks less like a workshop and more like a honeymoon suite." "Do you object?" she asked, lifting a goblet with a wicked gleam in her eye. "I object to being married without knowing it," he shot back. "You object," she corrected smoothly, "but you do not resist." She rose, striding across the room with newfound grace, each metallic step echoing like a drumbeat. He swallowed, unable to ignore the sheer power in her movements. She leaned close, whispering, "Besides, haven't you humans always said marriage is about commitment? You committed when you bolted these legs to me." That's not, look, where I'm from, giving someone legs doesn't mean you're engaged. Her laughter was loud, sharp, and embarrassingly infectious. Oh, human. On this world, restoring a woman's strength is the most intimate gift imaginable. What you call engineering, we call devotion. What you call screws and bolts, we call vows and bonds. And if you continue denying it, the council will simply think you are a coward who refuses to claim me. The word claim made him choke on his own breath. Claim you? I was just trying to help. Yes, she said, sipping her wine delicately, and in doing so, you have helped yourself into my bedchamber. Congratulations. From that point forward, their interactions became a tug-of-war between human practicality and alien innuendo. Every test of the legs became an excuse for double meanings. When he adjusted her balance settings, she sighed theatrically, "Careful, if you tighten me too much, I might lose control." When he asked if she wanted to try running, she replied, "Why rush, when I'm still savoring each first step, with you watching?" It didn't help that her people leaned into the chaos. At a council reception, one elder toasted them, praising the human for his skillful insertion of strength into our beloved diplomat. The hall erupted in applause while he sat frozen, face aflame. She clinked her glass to his and whispered, "Do you see now why I enjoy this? You blush more beautifully than the finest star wine." What neither of them expected, however, was how quickly the legs became more than a symbol. She grew stronger with each passing day, her stride confident, her poise commanding. Rivals who once dismissed her now scrambled to regain favor. Her enemies gritted their teeth as she strode into negotiations taller and prouder than ever before. And always at her side was the bewildered human, treated as both savior and consort, depending on who was speaking. It would have been easier if she didn't actually like him. But she did. Against her better judgment, against her pride, against her own vow to never let another break her again, she found herself laughing at his clumsy jokes, admiring his stubbornness, even craving his presence. When he scolded her for overexerting herself, she felt warmth instead of irritation. When he brushed her arm by accident, she felt sparks she couldn't explain away as static discharge. One night, after a particularly long day of political games, she found him in his workshop, asleep at his bench. His tools were scattered, his head resting awkwardly on folded arms, lips parted in the kind of unguarded innocence she rarely saw from anyone, much less him. For a long moment, she simply watched him, her chest tightening with something she hadn't felt in years. Gratitude. Desire. Maybe even affection. She reached out, fingers brushing the edge of his hand, but stopped herself before contact. What was she doing? She was a diplomat, a leader, someone whose people measured every gesture for political meaning. Yet here she was, aching to touch a human like some infatuated youth. She retreated silently, but the thought lingered, gnawing at her. By morning, her people had escalated matters. Invitations arrived for the bonding ceremony. Formal documents declaring him her partner were circulated, stamped with seals of approval. The human nearly fell over when he saw them. Bonding ceremony? No, I didn't sign up for this. You didn't need to, she said smoothly. Your hand's already signed for you. This is insane. I'm not ready for whatever this is supposed to be. Neither was I, she admitted quietly, surprising them both. For once, her voice lacked mockery. But readiness is irrelevant. What matters is that you stood me up when no one else would. And now, the galaxy demands we stand together. The words hung heavy, layered with meaning she pretended not to reveal. He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped when he saw her face, not the smirk, not the sarcasm, but something softer. Something honest. And in that silence, he realized that whether he liked it or not, he had already stepped into her life in a way no one else ever could. The day of the so-called bonding ceremony arrived before the human could figure out an escape plan. The halls were draped in shimmering banners, musicians tuned alien instruments that hummed like vibrating stars, and dignitaries filled the chamber with smug curiosity. He tugged at the stiff ceremonial robe they'd shoved him into, muttering that he felt like a lampshade at a very bad wedding. She, on the other hand, looked radiant. Tall, gleaming, and dangerous, she moved with a grace that drew every eye, her new legs catching the light with each step as though they had been forged for royalty. When she entered, the room hushed, and he nearly forgot to breathe. He told himself it was just the optics, just the alien silks and the aura of power, but deep down, he knew it was more. She carried herself like a storm in heels, and he was the fool standing directly in her path. The officiant, a severe elder with a voice like grinding stone, began reciting the ancient vows of union, speaking solemnly about shared burdens, mutual service, and lifetime obligation. The human court only fragments because he was too busy panicking at phrases like flesh entwined with steel and forever bound in function and desire. He whispered, "This sounds less like marriage and more like a warranty agreement with foreplay." She heard him, of course. She always heard him. Her lips curved in a sly smile, though her gaze remained fixed forward. "Relax, human. It's only tradition. Think of it as maintenance vows." "Maintenance? Like I'm your mechanic forever." "Exactly. And don't worry, I require regular tuning." He nearly groaned aloud, earning scandalized looks from the front row. The officiant droned on, but the words blurred together under the weight of double meanings bouncing around his skull. When the elder finally declared them bonded, the hall erupted in cheers, gifts were thrown at their feet, and she turned toward him with triumph in her eyes. "Congratulations," she murmured. "You are now officially mine." He stammered, "Yours? Like property?" "No," she corrected, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Like a partner. Like someone who stood me up when I couldn't stand alone. Do not cheapen it by pretending you don't care." Her bluntness hit harder than any jest. For once, he didn't have a witty retort. He just stared at her, seeing not the diplomat or the alien traditions but the woman who had suffered 10 years in silence and now walked again because of him. And in that moment, the weight of it all settled on his shoulders, not a burden, but a bond he couldn't deny. The feast that followed was chaos. Every dish was spiced with symbolism, every toast layered with innuendo. One general stood and proclaimed, "May his adjustments keep her joints smooth for all their days." Another wished him the stamina to keep pace with her newfound strength. Each phrase drew roars of laughter, and each one turned his face a deeper shade of red. She reveled in it, sipping her wine with elegant smugness. When she caught him sulking at the end of the table, she leaned close and whispered, "You could enjoy this, you know. Stop squirming and accept that you've made history." Besides, her fingers brushed his hand under the table, subtle but deliberate. "I rather like watching you squirm." His heart thudded harder than it should have. Maybe it was the wine, maybe the heat of the room, maybe the way she looked at him not as a broken diplomat but as someone who'd changed her life. Whatever it was, he stopped fighting the absurdity and laughed, a genuine laugh that startled even himself. By the end of the night, the hall was littered with empty goblets and discarded gifts. She stood proudly at his side, her legs gleaming in the torchlight, her people bowing in respect. He looked at her then, really looked at her, not as a project, not as a political mess, but as someone who deserved every ounce of stubborn effort he'd poured into those creations. "You know," he said softly, "these legs were supposed to just help you walk again. I didn't think they'd walk me straight into this." She tilted her head, amused. "Into my life. Into your life. Into your world. Into," he hesitated, then added, "into something I don't want to walk away from." For once, it was her turn to be caught off guard. Her sharp tongue failed her, her smirk faltered, and in its place came something far rarer, a soft, genuine smile. "Careful, human. If you keep speaking like that, I might believe you actually enjoy being mine." "Maybe I do," he admitted. "Maybe I've been yours since the first time you insulted me." Her laugh rang out, rich and unguarded, echoing off the high ceilings. She seized his hand, gripping it tightly, and together they faced the crowd still buzzing with drunken cheer. She raised their joined hands like a victor displaying her prize, and he let her, because in truth, he didn't feel like the prize, he felt like the lucky one. Later, when the hall emptied and silence finally reclaimed the chambers, she stood before him in the flickering glow of dying torches. Her voice softened again, stripped of sarcasm. "Do you regret it? Giving me back my legs, binding yourself to me, enduring the chaos?" He met her gaze without hesitation. Not for a second. She stepped closer, close enough that the hum of her prosthetics blended with the beat of his heart. "Good," she whispered. "Because now that I can walk again, I fully intend to run. And you, human, you'd better keep up." And before he could answer, before he could find another joke to mask his nerves, she leaned in and claimed him with a kiss that silenced every doubt, every hesitation. For the first time in a decade, she wasn't defined by her chair, her scars, or her bitterness. She was defined by choice, by strength, and by the reckless, stubborn human who gave her the chance to stand tall again. It wasn't just comedy anymore. It wasn't just politics or prosthetics or cultural misunderstandings. It was something deeper, sharper, and far more dangerous than any of them had expected. And for once, he didn't care if the whole galaxy laughed, because he was standing with her, and that was more than enough.